Hey guys, and welcome to Gwent, the Witcher card game. My name is Jaggerous, and yesterday was the end of the Gwent Challenger, which was an esports tournament for Gwent, and Freddy Babes won, so congratulations to him. And during that event, they had another card reveal, and they have now since revealed the full set of new cards that you can see here coming to Gwent in the Midwinter update. Bear in mind that we don't actually know all of the card changes to existing cards. So although we know what is coming in terms of new cards, we don't know what has been changed. There's been a few leaks which you can kind of find out about on Reddit, for example, where, you know, CDPR have shown videos and it's shown cards different to how they are now. But this video is all about kind of the new cards. So we're going to have a quick look at this collection and go through the new ones that we see here. So first and foremost, you can see here, Golden Froth Special Boon. Apply a boon to an allied row that boosts 2 random units by 1 on turn start. So this is like the opposite to Rain. So Rain is a negative effect. This is a positive effect. And while I don't think this card is great on its own, I would imagine that there's a lot of cards out there that play special cards. So Golden Froth in that situation is actually quite positive, in that you're kind of gaining benefits. So provided that there are cards that draw this card, I do think this card is going to get play in particular decks, especially when you boost your units, if that triggers boost on other units. For example, in Squirtle, I believe Farseers, when units get boosted, the Squirtle unit also gets boosted, or the Marauders from Squirtle, whenever their stats change, they gain points. So I can definitely see some synergies with Golden Froth and those cards. Next up, we have Reconnaissance. Oh, that's a fun word to say. Reconnaissance. Special Tactic. Look at 2 bronze units in your deck, then play 1. So this is basically the art from Rally, but instead of rallying, you're getting a choice. So it's kind of like an emissary, right? This is basically just a neutral emissary. So emissary is the spy where you play on your opponent's side, then you look at 2 bronze units in your deck and play 1. This does the same thing, and this looks like a pretty strong card because you could run this in, say, an Elven Merc deck. It's a special card, so you can then pull this with Elven Merc and thin bronze cards. So you can play Elven Merc into bronze cards. Admittedly, at the moment, you could do that with First Light, but this gives you a choice. So if you're looking for thinning rather than weather clear, this is actually better than First Light because you have a choice, so you can find the cards that you want rather than just being given a card. And I think this card will definitely see some play. I think it's a really interesting card. And again, it's kind of like Golden Froth, in that you're going to have situations where it's a very useful card. But especially when cards draw other cards, it's also a tactic. So it has that tag. For example, John Natalis can draw this. So moving on, we have Dragon's Dream, Special Item Alchemy. Apply a hazard to an enemy row that will explode and deal 4 damage to all units when a different special card is played. And I think this is really interesting because it triggers on, I would assume it triggers on your special cards or on your opponent's special cards. So this is a hazard that can't be cleared with First Light, because if they play First Light is a special card. So that would trigger the Dragon's Dream to explode. On the flip side, it is a very low tempo play. You know, you have to play it and then play something else, which means this is the sort of card that will typically see play with cards that draw it. So for example, Vesemir, I believe, is the gold card which draws an alchemy card. This is an alchemy card, so you could play Vesemir and apply this Dragon's Dream, and then it limits your opponent in terms of what they can play, because if they play a special card, then they trigger it. But alternatively, you can also play a special card and trigger it, so this kind of benefits in that regard. And I think this is a really cool card. I mean, admittedly, they said that the row limit is 9, so the maximum strength you can get out of this is 36. But 36 strength is kind of a big deal, so, you know, this is a really interesting card. And again, because it's alchemy, the fact that you can probably tutor it means that I think it will see some play. Then we have Glorious Hunt, Special Tactic. If losing, spawn an Imperial Manticore, which is 13 strength. If winning, spawn Manticore Venom, which is 13 damage. So this card is capped at 13. You can gain 13 strength or 13 damage. I guess, you know, if you're losing, getting points on the board is useful, and if you're winning, damage is good. But sometimes if you're winning, there's nothing on your opponent's side. So then the Manticore Venom is useless. And ultimately, why would you run this when you can just run Manticore Venom? Because Manticore Venom is open to anyone. It's like Manticore Venom with the body attached. Admittedly, it's a tactic, so you have that going for it. But I don't really see the point of this card. I don't really get it. So if anyone has, anyone has any feedback, let me know, because this one I don't get. So next up, we have Rock Slide, Special Spell. Deal 2 damage to up to 10 random enemies. So this is like hopped up overdose potion. So you get 2 damage to up to 10 random enemies, which adds up to 20 damage. It is a spell, So I guess it can be tutored in that sense. And I guess it's an interesting card for control decks or decks that you want to remove things for. And actually, I think this card would be really, really good in an Axeman deck or a Darren deck. You know, the Skellig deck where when you deal damage, you're boosting your Axeman and you're boosting your Darren, because this is 10 separate instances of damage, which is 10 separate boosts. So I have a feeling that Rock Slide will see play in those sort of situations where having that damage or that removal is really useful. Okay, so next up we have Agura Trueform. Relict Cursed. Create a bronze or silver spell. So this means it comes from any faction. This is kind of create. This is the kind of thing where I don't really see how it's going to be played in competitive. It is cursed, so units that like create cursed. This is an option, I suppose, but I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. Bronze or silver spell. I mean, it can draw the Rock Slide we just saw, and I guess you have that option, but all in all, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure when this is going to see competitive play. It's a bit of a weird one. Then we have Aguara, Relict Cursed. Choose 2. Boost the lowest ally by 5. Boost a random unit in your hand by 5. Deal 5 damage to the highest enemy. Charm an enemy elf with 5 or less power. So this card is basically 15 damage, right? So you can either just damage an enemy by 5 and boost an ally, which is kind of your default situation. You damage an enemy, you boost yourself, that's the 10 points. If you're playing this in a hand buff deck, you obviously have the option to boost your hand instead, so save the points for later, especially if you don't need the tempo now. You can basically get tempo later, so the boost there I think is going to be quite interesting. And alternatively, if you happen to be playing against elves, you have this extra option of charming, and that is very, very situational. Like 90% of the time you're going to be using the other 3 options, but I like it because it's very varied in the kind of ways that you can use it, and I think it'll be an interesting card. I think the boosting by 5 in your hand, the hand buff aspect, may make it a good inclusion for Scoia'tael, but you know, we have to wait and see how that kind of plays out. And you know, if you don't happen to have a target to boost, you do get the 5 damage, which is, you know, maybe not quite enough damage for removal. Typically you want more, but you also have the 5 boost to your own unit, so there are options, and I always like to see options. Next, we have Phoenix. Resurrect a bronze or silver Draconid. So this is, I guess, working in a Draconid deck. I'm not entirely sure what all the Draconids are in terms of how viable this card is. Obviously, it's a Resurrect, so Resurrections can be useful in Skellig where you get extra bonuses from Resurrect. But this does mean that you have to play your Draconid. Like, if you haven't played a Draconid yet, this is just 5 points, so that's not very good. I think as more Draconids get added to the game, this is the kind of card that will see more value, because once you get a good Draconid, this card is going to be good. The question is, do we have a great Draconid that would work with this? And I guess it just depends on the factions, really, because I don't think there's a neutral Draconid. Oh no, there is. There's like Okvist and Murtabrak. So Okvist and Murtabrak, I guess, are viable targets for this. Not bad actually, because it means also if they do kill your Okvist, that you can bring it back. So again, this could be interesting. This could be interesting. With Skellig, but the thing is, once the Okvist has died, you don't really want to resurrect it, because once the Okvist is triggered, you don't necessarily want to resurrect it, because once the Okvist is triggered, what happens is it just becomes 7 points, so it'd just be a 7-point res. Admittedly, that's a 12-point play, which isn't terrible, but we'll see. I think it's kind of going to depend a little bit on the Draconids. So moving on to monsters, we finally know what Moonlight does. Here is Moonlight. There's a lot of text. Special Hazard Boon. Choose one. Apply a Moonlight boon or apply a Moonlight hazard, so you have a positive effect or a negative effect. Full Moon. Apply a boon to an allied row that boosts a random beast or vampire by 2 on the start of your turn. So this is with vampire and beast synergy, that if you play this onto those, they're going to get boosted. Blood Moon. Apply a hazard to an enemy row that deals 2 damage to all units on contact. So this is kind of like the Pitfall Trap from Skellig, not Skellig, Scoia'tael. So if we scroll here, Pitfall Trap, apply a hazard to an enemy row, deals 3 damage to units on contact. This card is 2 damage to units on contact, so it's a little bit weaker. It means that when you apply it, you damage all the units on that row, and if you move units onto that row, they take damage as well. So it got really good synergies that actually with Drowners, because Drowners, assuming that this applies as a hazard for them, if you move a Drowner onto a hazard at the moment, the unit takes 4 damage. But because this would then take damage on contact, it would actually take 6 damage, which gives you quite a lot of potential for removal. And this card can be tutored with Siren, because she summons Moonlight, so she pulls it from your deck. So I think Moonlight decks are going to be a really interesting aspect of monsters, and it's one of those things I can't wait to play. Next up, we have Werecat. Beast Cursed. Deal 5 damage to an enemy, then deal 1 damage to all enemies under Blood Moon. So Werecat is 10 points, but then it's also a 1 strength, like a 1 damage effect across a row, basically. So it's like a mini lacerate, but only if they have the Moonlight, the Blood Moon applied, which is also dealing damage on contact. So you could basically play this, deal damage to everything for 2, then play Werecat, deal damage to everything for 3. Like, this is a lot of row damage. So, you know, you really don't want to be row stacking against this kind of deck, because you're going to be taking a lot of damage. And yeah, like I say, I think this archetype is really interesting. It's also a beast, which means that if you happen to play Full Moon, this guy can get boosted. Although I think typically this is designed to be played as a Blood Moon with a negative kind of effect. Right, next up we have Ice Troll. I think Ice Troll is new. Duel an enemy. If it is under Frost, deal double damage. Okay, so basically if you apply Frost, when you hit this unit, you'll deal 10 damage. So it's a 10 damage, and then he gets hit back, and then Ice Troll gets hit. I don't know if Ice Troll has enough base strength to make this worthwhile. So he gets the first hit, right? So he's going to hit them for the first hit, and he'll deal 10 damage. So let's say it's a 12 strength unit. He hits it and does 10 damage. Then he takes 2 in return. Then he kills it. So that would be like a 15-point play. So there are situations where Ice Troll is very good, but the fact that it's also limited that you need Frost, because if you don't have Frost, you hit something for 5 and then he dies, basically, unless it's a very small unit. You know, basically the Ice Troll, I don't know, a 5 strength duel is not great. A 10 strength duel is good, but I don't know. I think it's kind of too situational, and I'm not entirely sure exactly how this is going to be useful. I might be wrong, but this is one I'm not, you know, necessarily sold on. So next up we have Barbagazi. Consume an ally, boost self by its power, then become resilient. So this is basically Ekamara. This is just Ekamara. So I guess Barbagazi is now an insectoid, so they're trying to boost the insectoid kind of... I think one of these boosts insectoids. I guess they're trying to boost the insectoid archetype. And that's what they've done with Barbagazi. By making Ekamara into an insect, then this has insectoid synergies. I guess this just means what's happened to Ekamara. So I'll be interested to see what has actually changed in terms of Ekamara. That's kind of what I want to know here. Okay, so next up we have Forktail. Consume 2 allies and boost self by their power. So this is a Draconid, which means you can resurrect this with Phoenix. You can resurrect this with Phoenix. Consuming 2 allies is useful. That kind of, you know, at the moment you can see synergies with Neckers in terms of getting a double consume effect, gets double boost. It also, I guess, has synergies with Arrakis Behemoth, which we might see in the future. I guess it just depends how many benefits you can get from this consume and whether consume has been changed. Because if consume has been changed, this is, you know, all kind of speculation. But I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting card, and the fact that it's resurrectable may give it an edge. This one I'm not sure. It kind of remains to be seen. Okay, so next up we have Divana Runestone. Special alchemy item. Create a silver monster card. And I just want to point out that this exists, I believe, for every faction. So if we go down here, you know, Dazbog Runestone, create a silver Nilfgaard card. Zoria Runestone, create a silver Northern Realms card. Morana Runestone, Striborg Runestone. So they all do the same thing. They're all a bit lackluster. They're all a bit boring. I'm not really excited about this card. It basically gives you an option of a silver monster card. But if you're playing monsters, you would just run the silver monster card that you want. Like, why would I run Runestone when I can run Parasite? If I want Parasite, why would I run Runestone for the chance of getting Parasite when I can get Parasite? And these cards, as more cards get added to the game, are just going to get progressively worse. Because at the moment, the pool to draw them from is the smallest it will ever be. So, I mean, I guess with the new game mode, they might be good. I don't know. Okay, so next up we have Algul Necrophage. Consume a bronze or silver unit from either graveyard and boost self by its power. So that is currently what Necrorat does. So Necrorat, which was a vampire, has become a necrophage, which means I guess Necrorat's been changed. So this is similar with the Ekamara situation and the Barbagazi, whatever it's called. We have Algul taking that place. Okay, so next up, I'm trying to see what else we have here that's new. Oh, what's this? Old Spear Tip. Deal 2 damage to up to 5 enemies on the opposite row. So it looks like Old Spear Tip no longer has an asleep and an awake form. They've just made Old Spear Tip and then... oh, Sleeping Giant. Okay, that annoys me a little bit. So Old Spear Tip now, deal 2 damage to up to 5 enemies on the opposite row. 10 strength. So up to 20 points, which is, I think, really decent. And dealing damage to your opponent is good. He no longer requires a certain number of units on the opposite side to trigger. So, yeah, I think this is a solid card. It just seems like decent, you know, decent number of points, very easy to activate. big body as well, so not bad. Not bad at all. Then we have Sleeping Giant. Strengthen all your Ogroid units by 1 wherever they are. So, Spear Tip is an Ogroid. Nekkas and Nekka Warriors, I believe, are Ogroids. Goliath, this guy's an Ogroid. I don't know exactly all of the Ogroids. It kind of remains to be seen. Probably like the Trolls in that. Yeah, Ice Trolls are Ogroids. Bridge Trolls are Ogroids. So, you can kind of get an idea for how that's going to play out. I think it's an interesting archetype. And again, as more Ogroids get added to the game, this is going to see more value. So it's an interesting card in that regard. And last but not least, we have Arrakis Queen, Leader Insectoid. So this is what I mean about the Insectoid synergies. Consume 3 allies and boost self by their power. Immune. So Unseen Elder has become an Arrakis Queen, which means that maybe Unseen Elder has changed. And it remains to be seen whether Unseen Elder, like whether he'll be any good or not. But this just seems to be like another kind of situation where they've changed the art and the tags. Okay, so moving on, we have Nilfgaard, or Niflgaard. Some people say Niflgaard. Nilfgaard. And first and foremost, we have Slave Infantry. Spawn a copy of this unit on your other rows. So you play him and you get 4 points, but then you get a copy on each other row, provided it's not full, so that's something to bear in mind. But it is a 12-point play with 3 bodies. I'm just wondering how useful these bodies are going to be. You know, it's a 12-point play, but it just gives you power on the board, really. It gives you 3 small units rather than 1 big unit. Otherwise than that, it's a bit boring. So we'll have to wait and see in terms of how this pans out. Then we have Sentry, boost all copies of a soldier by 2. Aha! So that is how it pans out. Because in that situation, you've just spawned 3 soldiers, right? So you haven't spawned 1 12-strength soldier, you spawned 3 4-strength soldiers. You've got 3 4-strength soldiers, then you play a Sentry, you boost them all by 2, so that gives you 3 bodies instead of 1. So that's the synergy right there, is the Sentry, Slave Infantry. And I guess it'll be interesting to see kind of how a soldier deck pans out. Next up, we have Master of Disguise, Soldier Agent. So I guess Agent means he gets played on the opponent's side, I would assume. That's generally what the Agent tag means. It's like a spy. So you're giving your opponent 11 points. That doesn't seem right. Conceal 2 cards. So Conceal is a new effect. Because we have Reveal at the moment. We have Reveal Nilfgaard. And Reveal, you flip cards over so you can see what they are. Master of Disguise Conceal means that you turn them over so that they're no longer visible, right? So there must be some kind of synergy with this concealing mechanic where if you cover up cards, you're going to gain some sort of benefit. I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see what that is. But yeah, so you can conceal cards. I guess if you conceal them, you can then reveal them again. So you can trigger reveal effects multiple times. Not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. This one is confusing. If you have any like input, let me know in the comments below. Okay, so next up we do have this fellow here, Henry Va Atter. I guess that's right. Henry Va Atter. Conceal any number of units if allies boost by 2, if enemies deal 2 damage. Okay, so we can use him to basically cover up everything that's been seen and gain benefit. So this is a big power play actually, because once you've then spent the entire game revealing stuff, you then play this, conceal them back up, and gain value. But bear in mind that people can counter your reveal conceal strategy by playing the cards themselves. Like if I reveal a card and my opponent plays it, I no longer have an option of concealing it. So I don't know if this is actually going to be good enough to really see play. I guess we'll have to wait and experiment. This is a wait and see kind of situation. Usurper. Create any leader and boost it by 2. Spying. I'm assuming it means like any Nilfgaard leader, right? So you give them points and then you get an extra leader. So you get an extra leader ability. And then this actually synergizes with... wait, where is it? One of them resurrects a leader, doesn't it? I'm not sure. I think there's a card that resurrects a leader. Kahir. Kahir resurrects a leader. So then you can play a leader up to 3 times, right? Because you can play your leader, then you can play Usurper to create a leader, and then you can play Kahir to resurrect a leader. So this gives Nilfgaard the option of playing their leader ability up to 3 times, which is a little bit scary, especially with the strength of Amir's leader ability. On the flip side, it is, you know, you give 1 point to your opponent. Yeah, so I guess agent doesn't mean spying, right? Because this says spying, which I assume means you play it on your opponent's side, whereas this says agent. Maybe agent is just a tag. I'm going to assume agent is just a tag, and this is 11 points. Okay, last but not least. No, we've read this one already. Keep wanting to give it... So we still haven't seen the Nilfgaard new leader, right? Because we've seen... They've revealed some leaders, like they've revealed Whispering Hillock, but we haven't seen the leader yet from Nilfgaard or what it does. Okay, Northern Realms. Vandergriff's Blade. Choose one. Destroy a bronze or silver cursed enemy or deal 9 damage. If the unit was destroyed, banish it. So you get benefits if there's a silver unit, because you can just destroy a silver unit. But you also get the option of 9 damage into a banish, which is actually a really big deal. Because if you could get 9 damage into a banish, that stops a lot of graveyard play. So this is a really good counter to graveyard play. And honestly, it seems pretty strong, because you also have that situation where if they have a really big silver or bronze cursed unit, then you can just straight kill it. But if you kill, I guess if you kill the bronze or silver unit, you don't get the banish. But if you choose the 9 damage, you can get the banish. So you could also banish Morkvarg, for example, if you chose to deal 9 damage rather than to destroy a bronze or silver cursed unit. So an interesting item. And because there's a lot of cards which tutor items, I think this card will actually see a fair bit of play. Okay, next up we have Aedirnian Mauler. We're going to go with Aedirnian. Deal 4 damage to an enemy. So it's 7/4. It's fairly standard. It's a soldier. I have nothing really to say about this card. We've seen that one before. We've seen that one before. Resurrect a bronze cursed unit. Okay, so you can use this to replay cursed units. What cursed units do we have so far? Tormented Mage, Kidweni Revenant, Damned Sorceress, Cursed Knight, Vincent, destroy the armor of all units. So you actually, this allows, oh, bronze, so it says bronze. I was gonna say we can resurrect Vincent, but so this allows you to resurrect any cursed units. I guess it's just part of a cursed deck, and whether that synergy is useful or not, I guess we'll wait and see. Full Test's Pride Machine. Damage an enemy by 2 and move it to the row above. Crude, repeat its ability. So it's 10 strength, plus 2 damage and a row removal. And for every crew you get an extra 2 strength. I think stacking rows is probably going to be quite useful. Like, it seems to be that if this gives you the option to stack rows. And stacking rows can be useful for stuff like trebuchets, like some machines benefit from row stack. So this gives that card kind of an automatic boost. Interesting, interesting. But it's only silver, so you can only have 1 of them. And it's not a huge number of points. You know, there's a lot of bronzes that can deal 12, so we'll see. I guess we'll see. Okay, moving on, we have Scoia'tael. And the first new card is... We've actually seen most of these. Have we seen all of these? We've seen Crushing Trap. We've seen Elven Blade. We've seen Scout. We've seen Panther. Half-Elf, Pit Trap. Horn. We've seen Horn. We've seen Runestone. We've seen Paulie, because this is resurrecting a dwarf, which I thought synergized really well with this. We've seen Melen, we've seen Pavko, we've seen Yorvith, we've seen Isengrim, we've seen Xavier. Philandervel. I guess this one? This is a leader. Spawn a silver special card. Oh, I've seen his art before, but again, we didn't know what he does. So this is a new Scoia'tael leader, and what he seems to do is create a special card. Unless, did they show him before? No, they showed Ada before. I'm getting so mixed up with all my leaders, because it seems to be that all the new leaders are just going to be, you know, a create. It seems to be going to be a body and a create X. So silver special card gives you any silver from Scoia'tael or any silver from neutral. And it's kind of dull. Okay, Skellig. Clan Marauder. Deal 4 damage. If resurrected, deal 6 damage instead. So it's an 11, and then if you res it, it becomes a 13. And damage is good, like damage is useful. But I'm just wondering if these kind of, you know, X strength and deal Y damage cards are going to really see play when they're so common and they don't necessarily have as much synergy as some of the other cards. So whether in a 25 card deck you would play this, I'm not really sure. We have Clan Smuggler, Soldier Dimon. Return a bronze unit from your graveyard to your deck. So you can put things from your graveyard into your deck, which I guess means you could draw them again. I'm trying to think what Skellig cards would be really useful to put into your deck. I guess if you have like a Heymay Battle Maiden, this isn't bad because it means you can cycle cards with Heymays. And instead of resurrecting them, you then put them in your deck. So then he has a 10 strength body. So it's like a 2-step resurrect basically, because he has a 10 strength body. So I think this is interesting. I think this one's going to surprise us maybe. I think there'll be some situations where you maybe don't expect this to be as good as it actually is. And yeah, I guess that's it then for new cards. We haven't seen the Skellig leader, and we haven't seen the Nilfgaard new leader, but we have the leaders for the 3 factions. I mean, I think we can safely assume that they're going to be like a spawn effect, right? So that's just what we're going to see. I don't know what's happened to Ekamara. I don't know what's happened to Nekarat. Don't know what's happened to Unseen Elder, but interesting. I think now we just have to wait and see what changes have been made, but, you know, you can definitely tell that Gwent is not going to be the same. Gwent is not going to be the same after this patch. There are a lot of new things coming. Over 100 cards is really going to shake up the meta, and I don't know about you, but I'm really excited because this is going to change things. We're going to get to make new decks, and I think it's going to just kind of freshen things up going into 2018, which is exciting. But yeah, those are my opinions, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, you can always hit that thumbs up button, and you can always subscribe to the channel. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Jaggerous, and on Twitter @Jaggerous. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!